Have you ever been reading along in a book and suddenly you're like, yawn, this is so boring? Or maybe that's happened to you when you're writing. Or you think, wait, my story seems to be going backwards instead of forwards. Or maybe it's going up and down. Well, that's why story structure matters. And I'm going to give you today the key to unlock the mystery of how to keep that from happening in your story. Okay, Act 2. Now, I know you're going story structure. Why do we have to keep talking about this, Sharon? And I keep talking about it every week because it's important to understand how it works, even if you don't follow it exactly as is prescribed by the experts. So, just a quick look again at the basic story structure. So we can see by looking at this graphic that Act 2 is 50% or more of your story. Now that's a lot of words. That's a lot of story. That's a lot of action or not action if your story starts to drag. And we don't want that. We want our story to keep moving along so the reader keeps turning pages. And so today I'm going to talk about the two keys or the key to understanding it that will help you unlock the mystery of how to just keep ratcheting up and keep going forward so the reader keeps turning pages. So now I said Act 2 could be 50% or more. This graph shows obviously a perfectly structured, it's 25% for Act 1 and 25% for Act 3 and 50% for Act 2. But as I've said previously, I think that the plot point 1, which is the doorway into Act 2, could happen as early as 20%, maybe even a little before that. And plot point 2 can happen as late as 80%, just depending on the genre that you're writing and how much needs to happen to kick off, to set up your novel in Act 1 or to resolve all the story problems in Act 3. So here is the key to the second act. It's important to think of it as two parts. And I have mentioned it before, the 4-act story structure, and said, oh, it's the same as 3-act. It is. They use the midpoint as the end of Act 2 and the doorway into Act 3, which is between 50 and 75%, and then plot point 2 into the last, Act 4. Okay, so it is exactly the same, except for most story structure gurus just have the second half as a big old honking chunk. But it's important to know that it comes in two parts. So when your character first goes through that doorway of no return into Act 2, they are very reactionary. Notice that I said that at first, on the screen says at first, the character is reacting. So they're just reacting. Things are happening and they're reacting to them. They might not have a clear plan, or maybe they think they have a plan, but it never seems to work out. And that's because at the midpoint, which we are going to talk about next week at some length, something happens that gives them either new information or new insight that helps them actually form a clear plan of attack on their problem. Okay. And so that's why after the midpoint, the character is proactive. They are going forward. They have a plan. They are gonna solve it. Here's what they have. Now, does everything work out? No. The story would end right away if everything worked out. They are going to try things that are going to fail still. Ratcheting up to the dark moment that happens right before plot point 2, where it seems like, okay, I failed. There's no way I can succeed. And then where they finally get the next realization at that second plot point, which, yes, we will talk about that later. So first, I want to give you an illustration about how this works. And I'm going to use the original Wonder Woman movie, which I mentioned when I talked about the first plot point last week. So the first plot point, remember, was when she leaves the island. Okay, so she leaves the island with Steve Trevor, right? They go to London. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's like dressed wrong, doesn't understand what's going on. She keeps saying, take me to Aries, right? he has to go through all the political hoops, and she's just reacting and going along with what he's doing because she doesn't know about this world enough to make any decisions. So when does that change? Well, if you've watched the movie, you know when it changes, right? They go to the battlefront. There's this whole big thing. You understand people's stories as you're going up. That is all this buildup to the middle point, the things that are happening in the first part of Act 2. And at the midpoint, they're at the front lines. There's a battlefield. The Germans are shooting at the Allied forces. And Steve's like, come on, let's go. We're going to go through here and we're going to go around because da da da. And she's like, what? No, we need to help these people. And remember, she takes off the robe she's wearing. She takes whatever. She grabs her shield and she steps out and walks through the neutral zone of all the barbed wire and all the setup that they have to protect them from each other's fire, right? And she has that great thing where she's knocking down whatever with her shield and with her bracers, right? And then they start shooting bigger at her and she steps both forward. And there's a great poster showing her both feet planted in that shield pressed forward. She is proactive. This is the midpoint of that story where she says, no, I am here and I can make a difference. She has this glimpse of how she can make a difference and she can go after what she's looking for, which is Ares. And in the meantime, saving these people from him. Okay, so there's an illustration of how the second act is broken into two parts. Because after that midpoint, then what happens? Then she's going after him full bore. Okay, she's going to help the people in the thing. Okay, she's going to dance with them at the thing. Okay, she thinks it's him. Wants to kill this general. And so forth and so on. Okay, until the dark moment, which happens later. As you know, if you've seen the movie, I'm sure you can guess it. So the second act, it takes up the most of your book and you need to keep it moving along, my friends. And in order to do that, you need to understand that your character has a different mindset in the first half than what they do in the second half.